Hello guys, I'm Super Ron. Welcome back to the channel and we're back at Auto Shack on the Mk3 Golf 20 valve conversion. This is an 8 valve GTI and we're going to fit a 20 valve turbo from an Audi TT, bumping the power up to 225 horsepower. In the last episode you saw we stripped the donor, we got the BAM engine all out and ready. In this episode we're going to get the lonely 2 litre 8 valve out of this bay. Runs absolutely spot on. It is a little bit of a shame to take this engine out as it does run so smoothly, but I'm sure it'll be up for sale if anyone wants it. So for the very last time, as a 2 litre 8 valve, we will turn this off. The good thing about these is it's a complete bolt on front end, so as we've got to take the bumper and everything off for the intercooler anyway, and we've got a new rad to go in, I'm going to strip out the front end and take the engine out forwards, which just makes life a lot easier than the Mark 1s. That's everything folded in, ready to come off. So now let's whip this front end off and pull it forward. That's the bumper off. The front ends are so easy to come off on these because they all come off as one, and everything's made to be quick release because it's even got a multi-plug that does all the lights, the rad fans, everything else. Even the bonnet cable is on a quick release ball, so that comes off nice and easy. I think the bolts are all out. You can actually leave the bumper on and take the whole thing, grille, bumper, lights off as one, because the holes here allow you to get to the bolt holes there. So I could take the whole front end off as one, but it'll be easier this way. So now it should lift off. And I've just got to disconnect the horn. Now, off it all comes, all as one. And now we have so much room just to slide it out the front. So much easier than the Mark 1. To be fair, the Mark 2s are like this as well. Just make it nice and easy to pull it straight out the front. We've got our front panel off, so we've got to work out if we can fit a little intercooler in there. We'll have to cut these out maybe to get pipes through, to see where a nice one will fit. He's looking for the sleeper look, so we've got to try and hide it behind the little grill there. And hopefully this sits on there. We had to fit one under there somewhere. We'll have a look what other people have done before, or there might be an intercooler rad package someone's made up. I think we're all ready to pull it out. Engine looms all on a multi-plug, distributor and ignition all stays with it. Just remove the coil from the top. Heater matrix pipes are off, gear linkage is off, clutch cable and throttle cable is off, fuel lines are off. Let's go and get the engine crane and pull it out. Bolts are out. See if we can sneak it past these mounts. No, let's drop this front crossmember off and slide it forwards. So now we can come straight forward. And out it comes. Nice and easy and loads of access. There's not a great deal we're going to need off this. We're going to need the oil pressure switches, just like the other conversions. We're going to need the rear engine mount, which should bolt straight onto the BAM. The turbo oil return does come around and over in this area, so we've just got to see if that clears, because the transfer box was there, so the oil feed comes around it on TT. So we'll need that mount, and guessing that mount as well. They should all go on to what we've got. In the bay, we've got a hole already for our clutch master cylinder, and we've got the takeoff for the reservoir. They just melt that together as standard, so we just chop that off, put a pipe down to the master, and that's the clutch all done. We'll run the pipe around, we'll get rid of all this rod shift. And we saw on the 1.8 turbo last week, it's got quite a rocker cover leak, so we're going to fix that, give it a full service before it goes in. Rocker cover off, all looks nice and clean in there, which shows it's been a well looked after engine. New set of plugs, you can see how badly the rocker cover was leaking, down the middle as well. And a new cam belt, water pump and tensioner all fitted. Because we're not fitting an end mount on this, we can use all the standard TT kit, not have to mess around with bits like the Mark 1s. And all back together, fully serviced. So first off, we've got to look at this rear engine mount. We've got to make sure it clears this pipe, because on the BAM, as it's a 4-wheel drive, we've got the oil pump. These are the bolts where it mounts to. So they're right in the way where the mount has got to go. I'm not sure whether there is a 2-wheel drive oil drain for a KO4. I don't know if the Leon Cupras go straight from there to there. But the normal thing to do is just mod the mount slightly. So the problem we've got with the rear mount, it's got a mount here, but we've got an oil line there. It's got a little curve on the bottom, so that goes over there nicely. but you have to notch it out just below that bolt. So we'll get a little notch and that will go on. So start with a little hole and cut out into a nice little scallop. Just polish the edges up so you'd never know. Now that fits on there like that, plenty of clearance. And the bottom goes in. Anything, because we've got this tab on here, I'm just going to shave a little bit off there so it sits flat. I'm going to keep that tab on there because that holds the pipe. So I'll just shave a little bit off that one. And that'll all sit flat on there. So there, just knock the lip off that one. So it'll sit on that bar and sit flat. And just cleaning the threads out of these two because they've never had a bolt in them before in the 1.8 turbo. So they're a bit snotted up. Get it bolted on. And hey presto, we have a Mk3 20 valve mount. Clears everywhere. And the banjo at the top. Nice little clearance all the way around. Ready to go. As we can't put this bracket back on now, that used to bolt in there. And what that was is the anchor point for this. That just wobbles around. What I've done, drilled and tapped the hole in the top. So I can bolt that down and that'll be fixed on there solid and not hanging off the union there. Like that. And to get it all together, I've just had the delivery from Dark Side Developments for the clutch and flywheel. Got a single mass flywheel and BR6 clutch. As this one's a bit racy, we got the billet version. So we'll get that on and then we can get the gearbox on. And there it is next to the dual mass flywheel that it's replacing. But we haven't got the dual mass. We are solid flywheel conversion and all billet. Comes with all the bolts, so we've got everything we need to get it on. So let's get down off the stand. Now we can get to the rear main. Got the rattle plate on, flywheel on, two bolts ready and on. Got a Super Locker 3000 on there, so 60 Newton meters, then 90 degrees. All torqued up and of course signed up. Clutch next and gearbox. So we've still got a few things we need off this engine. We need the oil pressure switches, which are here and here to coincide with the Mk3 dash. This has also got an oil temperature on the MFA. Not sure if we're going to find a port, because like we do on the normal 1.8Ts, they have a blank like this, which we can put the two sensors in, so I don't know if we're going to have the third. And the other is, this is part of the Mk3 fan system. It's got like a thermal cutout. So I think I'll try and get somewhere for that plug in, just in case it upsets the system. And then we can get them onto the 1.8T. I'm just waiting for the gearbox to come back at the moment. So I've dropped the heat shields to get the shifter mechanism out, get all that out the way. So here is the factory rod shift. And I've just got the rest of the linkage off. So that can all stay with that, because we don't need that anymore. And here's the new shifter. So this is the old one, the rod shift, for the older style gear change. And then we've got this out of a Mk3, so all the mounting points are the same. This will go straight in. Just when you move this, the cables go in and out. So it's a much nicer gear change, and that's what the more modern gearboxes have. Another advantage that the Mk3s came with them, so it's a nice easy swap. And now I wanted to search for the ECU, so under here is where we have it. It is in the same place as the TT, so we might be able to hook something up and make that our home for our new ECU and have it running down. Also got our throttle cable that goes in there, so we'll fish that out. Got our clutch cable going in there, we'll fish that out and start prepping it for our new bits. Just had our Mk3 clutch master cylinder turn up, so that's a direct replacement. I just got a reg of one for sale off eBay. So I've just unbolted the little blanking panel that also was the stop for the pedal, so that comes out. This goes in. So now we have a clutch master. We've got the reservoir feed. It'll go straight to the reservoir there, just to pipe that, and then I'll probably just make up a braided line to go from there round to the gearbox. I've just been opening up the loom as well. So this is the plug that went on the side of the engine and joined to the engine loom. And in here I found the ones that we need. So we've got coolant temperature to the gauge, we've got oil temp, oil pressure, fan override, and this one is the feed for the injectors. So that will go to the plug that comes out of this loom, sitting just there. And I chopped both sides out of the TT, so I'm going to join this up, and then it'll be a nice factory looking plug in there. For the other side of the loom, I've got out everything that we need that feeds the ECU. So we've got the trigger for the fuel pump relay, got the purge valve trigger, got the ignition live, other bits and pieces. The only one that's not up here is the lambda feed for the heater, because the fuse box is behind there, so it comes out of there and it comes straight to the lambda plug. So this is the feed that we need for that, which is also controlled by the fuel pump relay. And then we can leave all the standard Mk3 wiring in there. I'll use that feed from there. We've got our feeds up here, we've got our ones here. We're still going to use mostly Mk3 wiring, so we've got the alternator, we've got the starter, it's got reverse, got speedo, so it's going to be quite easy to wire in. Just started going through the wiring diagrams. So I've got the Mk3 Golf one here, all the engine. So there's only 5 pages for the Mk3, but for the Audi TT engine there is 13. So I've just been going through, labelling everything I want, everything that we need to connect up. And as always, knowledge is power. Just got our box back, just had a full rebuild and a clean up. I found one of the main shafts was worn, but luckily they had another box there so they could swap bits over. So we are now fully rebuilt. I've got a few bits to swap over. This was a Mark IV that mounts there. We've now got a Mark here. We've got this shifter, and we've got to put an O2A shifter in to match the gear cables for the Mark III. But we are ready for it to go in. Clutch on, signed, box on, let's get it in. Get this front mount on. That's the front cross member back on, and then this mount goes in there and sits on there. The only thing that's different on the 1.8Ts is on the 8 valve these are threaded, so the starter bolts go all the way through and bolt into this. On the 1.8Ts the block is threaded, so we just need to grind them off and we'll put nuts on when that's in. It looks like all the power steering lines are going to go straight on, so no mods needed there, which is a result. So let's cut these nuts off and then put the starter in, and then we can bolt it on from the back. So now the starter bolt will go all the way through the starter, through the block, poke out the other end, and now we can just put the mount on and put a nut on there. And all on. I did just have to drop the oil cooler to get to that top bolt, but that just allows you to see it a bit better. So now we can get that back on and get it bolted to the front panel. And it's in. All on its own mounts. Just put a new oil filter on as well. All 3 mounts are on. So we are in on all 3 mounts and everything clears nicely. Even though it's a bit tight to there, that actually clears. Over this side with the ABS pump, everything's clearing the pipe work. It's like it is made to measure. All the power steering pipes are bolted on, all in their normal place. Same on the return, everything's fitting perfectly. Lots of room down the edge, room at the back. Even the heater matrix pipes going straight on. So let's get some more bits on. Want to get this boost pipe on, check we've got clearance on there. Got no problem with the boost pipe there, we got loads of room. So that'll sit in there on its mouth nicely. For the water pipes, on the TT this one has got an electronic water pump, but that's controlled by the TT coolant control module, so that won't run on here, so we can delete that. This is where the header tank was on the TT. That's the turbo return water line, and these two are separate on here, but ones without a water pump, they have a Y piece here, so the turbo return goes back into the rail under there and tees into there. So I can just cut these, join that one and that one together, and the turbo will then circulate back into the rail like that. So that's much neater.
Got rid of all the aux pumps. That's just like a TT without an electronic pump is like. Next up, got the front end back on because I want to see where the radiator pipes run. The bottom one, the Mk3 one, nearly fits straight on. Just needs to be a little bit longer. The top one will go from here, join into here. We might have to shorten this one a bit, give a bit more clearance on the fan. We'll just move it over. Have our boost pipe coming down here, but I need to see where we can fit an intercooler in. There's not a great deal of room with all this plastic one-piece shroud. Let's try the bumper on and see how much room we've got. I've been playing around with our box of spares and old boost pipes and the Sawzall, trying to make a game plan, and I think I'm just about there. I wanted to get it looking nice and neat, but still nice and practical. I don't like it when everything's disjointed and they just use the rubbers to make it flow and just make it fit. So I've got all these nice and straight, done a little bit of trimming to the front panel down there, and got this one following the row, so it goes along, tilts down, and that carries on, and then the angle carries down. So they do all clear everything. Got a nice lot of clearance down there. You can still get to the rad switch. Everything clears the pump, and then it pops down the bottom and comes out to where the intercooler will be. So you can just see where it cuts through there. And then on this side, everything's nice and clear, and that one will pop out as well. I haven't trimmed too much of the front panel off yet, because I need to have a measure up and see what intercooler we want. But I did discover that this bit comes out, and that's given us a nice lot of room in there now. We are still tight on this side. You can see how the radiator's a lot further forward this side than this side. So if they're both like that, it'd be easy to fit the intercooler in, but this side it closes right up. But with a bit of trimming, I think we're going to be okay. So this is just mocked up with all bits, old parts we've got laying around. We always keep a nice big box of spares, because you're never quite sure what you want or where you want it to run until you actually build it. Sometimes you can order loads of 90s and loads of straights and think you're there, get them through, and nothing fits. So that's why we always mock it up first. Now I've got a good idea what size couplers we want, and we can order all matching couplers, all matching hoses, and all these bits can go in the box for next time. We've also got our flange for our map sensor to go in here. Again, this is just a mock-up. This isn't for the VW size, so then we can get this ordered. Everything is looking pretty good. Just slip the bumper back on so we can just get a bit of an idea of how much space we have got to play with, and really not a lot. The radiator nearly comes right to the front on this side, so we might have to lose these fins. We're going to try and keep it as discreet as possible. You can see on this side where I've cut it out where the boost pipe's going to come in. I just had a little measure up, and there is a universal intercooler that will go from this bar to this bar, and that comes to about here. So obviously we're not going to chop out the bumper, but we can trim it all the way under here flat, so all the air can still get up to it. So I think that'll be a decent size. And then we'll have the other pipe popping in through here. So now we know what we need, we can start ordering some bits. I just needed to get the engine in, but some eagle-eyed viewers would have noticed that there were some bits missing off the gearbox. That's because it's out of a Mark IV and we needed a lot of Mark III bits. So we've just got a donor come through. So we've got the engine mount that we were missing. We had the standard Mark II mount at the back, but on the Mark IIIs, they have this extension, which is kind of a double brace. We've got our shift tower to match our Mark III cables. We've got our clutch master cylinder, which has a bolt-on banjo. And most importantly, we've got our 100mm drive shaft cups. So we'll take all these bits off and stick them on our gearbox. And there's the two CVs side by side. You can see this is the Mark IV one, much bigger, 108mm. This is 100mm. You can see even the bolt holes are bigger on these. So the Mark III bolts don't even bolt in, even if they did line up. It's a direct replacement. So let's get this on. Just before we put this shaft back on, I've got to put a new boot on it. So we've got one to go on, like that. Let's get this on. Let's fill out with oil before we put the shifter in. And tower all back in. Next up is to put this Mark III extra mount in. Even though we are sitting on the mounts at the back, that's like a Mark II setup. But the two holes at the top there accept this brace, so it just helps support that mount at the back. The only thing is, because this is a Mark IV box, the holes are threaded and we want to bolt through just like a Mark I conversion. So, got to drill them out, then that will bolt through. And there it is, bolted through. And you can see it runs from that mount there to the standard Mark II style one at the back. And just under acceleration, that just takes the load off that mount that's right at the back of the box and spreads it across, just like a little mini strut brace. Definitely beneficial with the turbocharged engine. So I think I probably am going to wrap this episode up here. We have now got a 1.8 20 valve turbo sitting in the bay. All the pipe work is looking very promising. I've had a look over the wiring as well, also looking very promising for a nice neat conversion. We've got lots of measurements now. I've got all the pipe work listed down that I want to order. I've got an intercooler in mind, so we'll get all of them on the way and we'll be all set for the next episode. Hopefully we'll get all this piped in, get all the wiring done, and then I don't think it's going to be too long until we can turn the key. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Make sure you give it a like. If you're only just finding the build, make sure you subscribe so you can catch the next episode. But until then, make sure you have fun.